So tonight we're going to be talking about what's coming up real soon here. Or it's already started. Eating well through the holidays and beyond. And I'm going to do a little quick intro of my background. So those of you that don't know me can know me a little better. So I have been a registered dietitian with the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics for about a little over 20 years. I have my master's degree in community health. I'm also a member of the Oncology Nutrition Practice Group of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And I have experience with cancer patients for 15 plus years. I've been doing one-on-one counseling through the Hearst Cancer Resource Center and group lectures like this one. Prior to that 15 years, I still also work in-house in an acute care hospital, which is at French Hospital, like Shannon mentioned, to help people that have other health concerns and situations. So today's objectives are listed here. I'll go through them real quickly. We want to talk about why eating well matters in general. You know a lot of those reasons, but we'll just review them real quickly. We're going to try to understand why we may be eating more in the winter or during the holidays. We're going to talk about tips for keeping us on track during the holidays and winter when it comes to choices. We're going to talk about what some healthy food choices look like that could be helpful in the winter time that are satisfying. And then we're going to talk about healthy swaps, recipe ideas, and modifications at the very end. So first you might be thinking, why is it important to eat well before, during, and after cancer treatment? I mean, there may be some obvious reasons, but there's some that I wrote here that you may have not thought about. Eating well plays an important role because it may help you, one, maintain your strength, lower the risk of infection. It can help allow the body to help repair itself. It actually can help you sleep better. It can keep unwanted weight gain at bay, if that's a concern. And it can actually help decrease the chance for recurrence of certain types of cancers. And there's a lot of other reasons as well. Following a healthy eating plan is not always easy when going through treatment, since some people may have difficulty eating or even digesting food, or even experiencing other obstacles like loss of appetite, a dry mouth, changes in your taste or smell of foods, maybe a sore mouth or throat, nausea, diarrhea, or constipation, all these various things that affect the GI tract. If you happen to be experiencing problems with eating or digesting foods, I really do encourage a one-on-one consultation with the registered dietitian, who's myself, at the Hearst Cancer Resource Center, to really help address those concerns, as tonight's lecture is really geared toward those who may not be experiencing those challenges at this time. Some of the lecture might apply, but it's if somebody has more obstacles in eating, it is much better to have a one-on-one consultation. And that's not me just plugging myself. It is just really important to individualize, the information you get if you're experiencing those things. So you might be wondering, why do I feel like eating more in the winter? And this is something that people might wonder and say, they notice this about themselves maybe year after year. Cooler temperatures, fewer daylight hours, and more time spent indoors can all have a significant effect on when, how much, and even what we're hungry for. Winter months trigger certain biological changes that make us more inclined to eat more and more energy-dense or higher calorie food. There's other factors like food-focused holidays and potentially spending more hours actually at home that can contribute to different eating patterns as well. An interesting point is that the average American gains about 1 to 3 pounds during the winter months, and most of this is in December. Some will lose some of that by January. Winter actually might make you hungrier. There's a few theories around why that might be. Cool weather may trigger an evolutionary remnant inside of us to sort of, quote, fatten up to survive the tough environments. If you can remember or think of snowy or very cold conditions where it's a little more beneficial to have an extra layer on, right? The way many other animals do. The change of season may change the balance of some of the hormones that control hunger and appetite. So there's hormones like glucocorticoids, ghrelin, and leptin. These all kind of are hormones that are related to metabolism. Ghrelin increases appetite. Leptin might be an appetite suppressant hormone. So that change of season might affect those. The fewer daylight hours, that's also what might be triggering extra hunger. Sunlight triggers serotonin, which is a brain neurotransmitter, which can improve mood, but so does ingesting things like that have carbohydrate in them, because carbohydrate increases insulin to release from the pancreas, and this insulin release increases serotonin. So it's kind of a feel-good hormone, or neurotransmitter, I mean. So many people may crave more carbohydrate-rich foods, like things like potatoes and pasta and warm bread, to actually improve mood, especially in the less sunny months. So you might be thinking, oh man, well, if we're having these cravings for these foods and it's just a part of, kind of a biology, are we going to just succumb to these different things? Of course, just because we might be more likely to crave things like chocolate cake or croissants or cheese or warm bread in the winter, it doesn't necessarily mean we should indulge in those cravings at will. Those cravings are driven by the, quote, pleasure of eating. And while indulging in moderation every once in a while is absolutely acceptable, we can also certainly choose to satisfy our appetites in healthier ways as well. So you might think, well, besides pure physiology, could it be mindset coupled with opportunity that's affecting our desire to eat more in the winter and holiday times? There's another point. So it's important to note that a lot of wintertime overeating may be a result of, like I said, opportunity and mindset more than just pure physiology. Cool weather, like we know, ushers in food-focused occasions, from Halloween that we just had to Thanksgiving that's coming to the Super Bowl, of course, Christmas in between. Each are all packed with opportunities to overindulge. And then the grocery stores don't help by featuring all of these extra goodies throughout their stores. And on the days and nights in between all of those holidays, many of us are more likely to spend more time at home when outdoor activities become more limited because it's colder. And we tend to just want to come home and stay in once the sun goes down. When it gets darker earlier, you tend to stay home more, and early evening is really a vulnerable time for a lot of people. And then another thing that happens in the winter is activity tends to drop. We tend to be less active in the winter and to stay less hydrated. So when the mercury dips, a cold, tall beverage may be the last thing on your mind. But skipping out on your daily quota of liquids can often be mistaken for hunger, and then that could lead to cravings. So a tip would be to try hot beverages, of course, like decaf or herbal tea, or even just warm water with lemon or hot water with lemon, which will help warm you up and keep you feeling full. An interesting side note I thought it was interesting was there's some research at Yale University. They found that things that are physically warm, such as a hot shower or a warm drink, may actually help people feel happier and less lonely. So you might be thinking, well, what are we going to do about all this? What can we do about all this? Over the next few slides, we're going to review some tips on how to deal with this potential increased desire to eat and guiding us in making the healthiest food choices we can during the holiday and the winter season. So tip number 1, you want to try to keep a regular eating schedule. You should try to eat as close to your normal mealtime as possible to keep your energy levels and your hunger stable. If there's a family meal or being served like later than you're used to, it's really a good idea to grab a snack at your regular mealtime and eat a bit less during the group meal. Some good snack ideas are things like low-fat or low-sugar Greek yogurt, string cheese with a piece of fruit, unsalted nuts with a few pieces of dry fruit, vegetables dipped with hummus, warm vegetable soup with a few Triscuit crackers, or these new crackers I found called Mary's Gone crackers. They're also pretty healthy. Tip number 2 is to try to eat mindfully. So depriving yourself often backfires. So you really want to be aware that if you just try to enforce a bunch of willpower in trying to not eat the things that may not be, quote, the healthiest for you, it can backfire. So if pumpkin pie or turkey stuffing is your favorite item of the big meals, or certain, when you're going to a holiday meal, for example, then take a small portion of your favorite foods and really savor them. Chew them slowly, focus on the aroma, texture, temperature, and taste in every bite. So that's how you can eat mindfully, which is just kind of really paying attention when you're eating those favorite things. Tip number 3 would be setting some ground rules for yourself. So if you set a few ground rules, you may want to make like a resolution or two and really keep them. For example, maybe your resolution might be, I'm only going to eat while I'm seated. Or maybe I'll decide I'm going to eliminate second helpings. Or if I do want a second helping of something, I'm only going to choose the vegetable or the fruit as a second. Or maybe you decide I'm not going to eat after a certain time at night. Setting just a few, quote, ground rules, 1 or 2, not too many, may help you keep focused on continuing the healthy habits beyond the holidays as well. Try not to make too many rules, though. When you make too many rules, that can be hard to stick to. Tip number 4 is watching your drinks. What you drink can add calories. So, things like alcoholic beverages and many fruit punches can be long on calories, but short on nutrition. Instead, you want to look for things like maybe some hot cider, flavored sparkling, quote, mocktails, or spiced hot teas. These tend to have a little less calories. The hot cider might be up there, but it's something different. Tip number 5, avoid skipping meals. So skipping meals can actually increase hunger and make it even more challenging to make healthy choices. So you want to eat small, well-balanced meals throughout the day to help control your hunger. This one kind of teeters on the first tip I mentioned, trying to set, eating at a certain time of day that you're used to. So trying not to skip meals is a good idea. Tip number 6 is avoiding overeating if this is a problem for you. So some ways to do that is just using a smaller plate. This allows you to put less food on your plate and encourages proper portion sizes. If you're at a potluck, fill your plate with vegetables, maybe half of your plate with vegetables and salad before going to the entrees and desserts. Another technique you can do is trying to eat the salad before your meal. So eat your vegetables first on your plate. That can help you eat a little less from the other more savory and more rich foods. Before you go back for seconds, maybe wait 10 minutes and socialize, or, wait a few more minutes to see if you're still really hungry. If you're invited to a party, you can always offer to bring a healthy dish along so that you can choose that item from the potluck or, the festivities. So there are some healthier foods or healthy foods that we can talk about that are great for the wintertime that can help satisfy both your body and your mind, that you can seek out comfort foods that help fill your belly, warm you up, and make you feel good. But they're also good for you. And there's quite a few of them that we're going to talk about. So the go-to foods for the winter: soup. And that's maybe an obvious one, but it's really a great way to get more fiber-filled vegetables into your winter diet, since you can toss just about anything into the soup pot. Think about greens, beans, lentils, whole grains, and vegetables that might otherwise rot in the crisper. You can always add a lean protein like chicken or maybe frozen shrimp, and you're kind of all set. Be sure to choose a broth-based soup over a cream-based one to save on those unhealthy fats and calories that you might get from a cream-based one. Something I really like to do, and it's in the end of the slides where I talk about recipe substitutions. I've actually taken something called cashew cream. I take raw cashews and I blend them with water and a 1-to-1 ratio, and I blend them until it's basically into a very creamy, smooth end product. And then I actually drizzle that into my soups so that it brings a little cream to my soups, but I'm not using heavy whipping cream or anything along those lines. And I can kind of control the amount of cashew cream I put in, and it creams up even like almost a broth-based soup a little bit. So I really enjoy doing that. Citrus fruits. So while most fresh fruit is in short supply in the winter, citrus is there to shine. Mandarin oranges can be a really easy snack. Maybe you couple it with a few nuts for a snack. Or you can make a great salad with some citrus and winter greens like Swiss chard, chicory, or kale. Other foods in the winter, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, these are all well in season. I mean, we can find broccoli and cauliflower in our California markets all the time. Brussels sprouts are maybe a little more special at the time. And then sweet root vegetables. So when the air is cold, you know, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and then sweet root vegetables, they're great for roasting. You know, toss them with a bit of olive oil and some of your favorite seasoning in the oven at 400 degrees, maybe 15 to 20 minutes, depending on, you know, how thick you cut certain things. I know on Brussels sprouts, it's really good to drizzle at the very end some balsamic vinegar over them after you've, you know, roasted them. That can make a real nice kind of sweet taste to them without actual adding sugar to them. Salmon is another great one. One nutrient experts agree is vital in the winter is vitamin D, because there's limited daylight hours, the change in wavelength of the sun's rays, and less time spent outdoors means most of us aren't absorbing as much from the sun as we do in the warmer weather. And vitamin D has been shown to play a crucial role in maintaining mood. So your top dietary sources are things like fatty fish like salmon, and it happens to be rich in omega-3s as well, which is another mood booster. And then, of course, there's some fortified dairy products that have vitamin D. Oatmeal is another great one in the winter. It's warm for those chilly mornings and can be changed up for the winter. Instead of maybe doing your same tastes in there, you know, maybe you can add cinnamon, cardamom, or nutmeg without adding a lot of extra fat, sugar, or salt. And that would change it up for you. And, you know, it's about really making healthful swaps. That's the way I look at eating. You know, if you're going to give in to craving, and most experts agree you should occasionally do that, you just want to really watch your portions, and whenever you can, and if you can, make a healthful swap instead. You know, if you're really dying for a bowl of pasta and cheese, for example, maybe you switch out the regular enriched pasta for a whole grain option instead. Maybe you add a little bit of lean protein in the mix, and along with a few vegetables for vitamins and fiber to basically make it a little bit healthier, right? If it's dessert you want, maybe you go for some steaming hot cup or mug of hot dark chocolate, or a small piece of dark chocolate with a few nuts and pieces of dried fruit with it. If you're the chef of the party, here's some kind of recipe substitutions you could make. And some of these are going to attempt to decrease either the fat in them, mostly decreases the fat in them, or the, and so things like, if the recipe calls for 1 whole egg, you could substitute with 2 egg whites, or 1, I put it in quotes, flax egg. And if you look at the double asterisk on the bottom there, it talks about what a flax egg is. It's basically taking 1 tablespoon of flaxseed meal, mixing it with 3 tablespoons of water. You let it sit for 5 minutes, and that can replace 1 egg in a recipe. I will admit I've never tried this. I have colleagues that have tried it and say it works pretty well in kind of baked goods, I would say. Sour cream, non-fat plain Greek yogurt instead, or low-fat sour cream can be a fairly good substitution in certain ways. Whole milk, of course, 2% or 1% milk can be substituted. Whipping cream can be substituted for chilled evaporated skim milk. I haven't really done that one either. Cheese, maybe a low-fat cheese if you can find that, but avoid the non-fat cheeses. They're not real. They're made with a lot of added things. We don't want to use that. If the recipe calls for an oil in it, you can always substitute applesauce, but you might have to adjust other liquids in the recipe. I have done that one. I tend to just cut the oil maybe by half, and then use applesauce for the half oil, and then use half of the oil that it calls for, because I still wanted to have a little bit of oil, because it does change kind of the texture of your end product. If your recipe calls for heavy whipping cream, like I was mentioning before, you can use this idea of a cashew cream. I mentioned on the bottom there, you would use a food processor, blend equal parts of the raw unsalted cashews with water. You're going to blend it until smooth, and it can actually be used in savory dishes or even as a sweetened cream. Of course, you cannot make whipped cream with it. It doesn't whip normally. Mostly I've used them in soups. I've also drizzled it over, let's say I've made a little, like I want to eat a dessert. I will take a few berries, like strawberries, blueberries, blackberries. I couple it with a couple pieces of dark chocolate, small bits, and then I put the cashew cream over it. If I have sweetened the cashew cream just a bit. So it gives a little bit of a creamy texture to my dessert. Many other products such as mayonnaise, cheese, cream, soup, sour cream always have lower fat versions. So you can experiment with those in your cooking. More healthful swaps. You can use whole wheat bread cubes instead of white bread to give stuffing a fiber boost, or maybe you can be adventurous and you try a stuffing made with wild rice, brown rice, or bulgur wheat. Like you could take wild rice, cranberries, and apple stuffing, and make it with your instead of the bread. Instead of topping sweet potatoes, butter, sugar, and marshmallows, you could try tossing your sweet potatoes in a small amount of oil, like avocado oil, sprinkling on some cinnamon and roasting them until they're caramel brown. You can use fruit butter or pumpkin butter as a low-calorie bread spread instead of regular butter or jelly. You can make your pumpkin pie with fat-free evaporated milk instead of whole evaporated milk. It's really a simple way to slice off quite a bit of calories and lots of fat from the whole pie. You can try cutting sugar by 1/3 to 1/2 in just traditional recipes. I do that often. And increase the use of flavorful spices like cinnamon, nutmeg, vanilla, and other sweet spices and flavorings. That one usually, that's one of those ones that's hidden. You won't notice it all that much. I'm not a huge baker, so I hope nobody asks me questions about how to do substitutions with other sugar substitutes, because I haven't done a lot of practicing in that area. So I'll be real honest with you on that. If you're a guest at a party, always peruse the offerings first. Load up on vegetables, add some protein like turkey or other meats to help satisfy your appetite, and then fill in with samples of carbohydrate-based foods like stuffing, potatoes, and pasta. But like I said, loading up on the veggies will kind of make your plate getting more full so that you're loading there, and then you're having smaller amounts of the foods that might be a lot more rich. Don't arrive at the party with an empty stomach. Instead, be sure to eat a light snack or a meal beforehand. Start with half-size portions, and like I said, savor every bite. If you're still truly hungry, you can always go back for seconds. Remind yourself to eat until you're satisfied but not stuffed. Some of my concluding thoughts, and these thoughts were adapted from an author named Michael Pollan. He has this book. It was, I think, now written back in 2009. It's kind of older now. He called it Food Rules, and it's a little paperback, and it has just one line on each page, which is kind of funny. But these are some of my favorite ones from there. He says, don't eat anything your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. You want to try to avoid food products containing ingredients that a third grader cannot pronounce. You want to eat foods that will eventually rot. And if it came from a plant, eat it. If it was made in a plant, don't. And it's not food if it arrived through the window of your car. That's, in conclusion, that's it. That's all I have today.